Hi, my name is Dennis Seary. I am Executive Director and founder of the New York City Independent Film Festival, Independent in Spirit, International at Heart, and this is the New York City Independent Film Festival Meet the Filmmakers podcast. Join us while we meet this year's filmmakers. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, in this episode, we're here with Carla and Kelvin. Hi, guys. Thank you for joining us. Please introduce
Hi,
yourself.
Dennis.
Tell us a little bit about you.
I'll go first. Hi, I'm Kelvin Phillips. I am the writer and director of Music for a While, short film that will be screening at the New York City Independent Film Festival. I am a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker for over 20 years. I've done a couple features, one a narrative feature, and also a documentary. Went to film school. I pretty much stayed in the independent side of things. I did a little bit of a stint in California. It was a gun for hire, writing a couple scripts. Neither of them that made it to the big screen, but it was a good experience. And currently live in downtown Newark. I am a program director, currently at StoryCorps. We know StoryCorps. It's currently at StoryCorps, program director for a new program there called Brightness in Black. And also continuing to tell stories with our company, Bridging Stories. It's a little bit about me.
Okay, Carla?
All right. I'm Carla Jackson. Thanks, Dennis, for inviting us. We appreciate it. I am the partner of Kelvin Phillips for our company. Let's see, I have been working mostly in theater most of my life. I've produced on Broadway, off Broadway, independent. Also have produced marathons, dance. Basically, my area is, what do you need to do? Let me get it done. And then at some point, Kelvin and I met, and he said, "Hey, have you ever produced a film?" I was like, "No, let's do it." And that's how we got together.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining us and welcome. All
Sure.
right, so I guess first question is, I guess we'll go to Calvin. What made you want to be a filmmaker?
What made me want to be a filmmaker? That goes way back to when I was in late middle school. I was in ninth grade, and Apocalypse Now came out. And there was a movie theater in my town of Willingboro, New Jersey, South Jersey, called the Fox Theater. And it was where all of the kids would go to see all of the latest Bruce Lee, Hong Kong, Bruce, I'm sorry, say that again. The latest Bruce Lee film that comes out, or something like Herbie the Love Bug. But then, we would go. It was just straight movies that we were just enjoying, comedies, action, things like that. But then I saw Apocalypse Now, and it was just so different. It just, for the first time, I realized that there was intention behind filmmaking, or there could be intention, that there could be storytelling, that somebody, in this case, Francis Ford Coppola, is actually making this happen and creating an emotional response in me. The montages, the music, the darkness of it, just the poetry of it, just really responded to me. It was the first time that I actually realized that movies can actually be art. They don't necessarily have to just be entertainment, but they can, be meaningful in other ways. Didn't do much with that other than just had that knowledge, and just started to look for films that were like that. Mostly like it was the time where Spielberg was doing things like Poltergeist and things like that. So my filmmaking, or my film viewing, it got a little more intentional in the things that I was watching. At the time, I wanted to go to school for theater, college, that is. I wanted to be a song and dance person. I'd been doing that in high school. But then when I went to Howard University in DC, I was in the School of Communication, hoping after my first year to audition and transfer to the School of Fine Arts. But then I fell in love with the filmmakers of the program. They were a great bunch of filmmakers down there, Alonzo Crawford being one, Haile Gerima, the world-renowned Ethiopian filmmaker, who became one of my mentors. And just the art behind what they did, And in many of their cases, also the messaging, and just how important, film actually being a way of protesting, a way of telling
Mm.
stories that give voice to the voiceless. And that actually, really meant something to me as well. So I decided to stay in the film program. I got a degree in film directing and never looked back from there.
Great.
Yeah. What I was laughing at, sometimes you look back at your life and I realize I've always been a producer. I used to produce I'm a twin, by the way. And I used to produce my sister and our birthday parties. Um, in addition, we grew up in Queens. Yes, I'm a Queens girl at heart. And what I used to do is go around the neighborhood and find my different friends or meet some of the kids in the neighborhood, and I would get them to find out, what is it do you like to do? Do you like to dance? Do you like to, juggle? Do magic? So I would have them come, and like every week we would have a little show at my house in the basement. All the kids would come, and we had popcorn and stuff, but we always had a show. And I didn't, until you're older, it's like, oh, well, of course. And God bless my mom, you know.
You put up with it.
Exactly. But she's a Southerner. They were like, what do you do? And, the parents would also donate food and so forth because they knew where their kids were and the kids were having a great time and the kids were able to express themselves. So, it's not a bad thing at all. But I've also, besides theater, my mother is also a singer, a jazz singer, opera, and so forth. So we've always been an artsy family, and we've always seen a lot of different theater, but we've also loved the image, the visual image in other ways. And I went to school. I have a master's degree in theater management from Yale University, from the Yale School of Drama. And then while I was there, I did an internship at HBO Documentaries. And because I really was interested, I love stories, and in particular, I love stories that some from a narrative, but I also love the ones that are told from a place of truth, of course. And while I was there, at a certain point at an event, that's where I met Kelvin. We started talking, and voila,
Rest is history.
the rest
The
is
rest
history.
is history.
But I will say this, very early, I realized Kelvin is a visionary. I have great taste when it comes to what's a good story. What is someone who knows how to not only be able to talk about what they're going to do, but to do what they say they're going to do. And very early on, I said, this is someone that I know we can work with. We have very similar art styles and so forth, but he's also someone with a great heart and a great talent. So I said, this is someone we should be working together. And thankfully we are.
Yeah, well, that goes back to, again, something like Apocalypse Now. And by the time it was, out of Howard and at NYU, I was watching things like Kurosawa, the usual suspects: Kurosawa, Bergman, Fellini, Antonioni, the ones that you're supposed to learn from. And I wasn't doing it in this kind of pretentious way. I really responded to a lot of that work. Not all of it. Some of it I'm like, but a lot of it was really, really fascinating and just interesting in different ways. And you just kind of pocket it or put it in your mind, and it sort of feeds into, at least with me, the types of stories that I tell. It just sort of becomes second nature that the stories I tell are more challenging, trying to be intentional with the thinking and the feeling and the emotion, and all with a very independent spirit to it, as opposed to and this is not a ding on Hollywood or anything, but like, more than just for commercial purposes, really trying to say something with the film. And, that's just what we love to do with
Yeah.
bridging stories. It's just what we do.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That was a great introduction. You almost answered half my questions. I'm going to go through them anyway.
It's going to be a short podcast, Dennis. You say?
Right. Because my next question is, how long have you been doing this?
Oh man. I mean, I would, when you're in film school, you have to do shorts and things like that. So I guess you could say college, but I got my first film grant right out of grad school. So what was I, 25 at the time? That was the first like, oh, someone is paying me some money to actually do something. It was a experimental narrative film called Love and Brief. It will never see the light of day. I will never show that film to anyone. but it was,
You were
but
learning. You were learning.
but it has a lot of great stuff in it, and it was three stories, almost like uh, three parallel plots happening at one time. What's that film that D.W. Griffith did way back then? Not Birth of a Nation, no. The one he did after that, there he's telling three stories at one time, which is very innovative. Basically, he was cross-cutting them. So my film had it was that sort of device, but
That's
all
pretty
three of the stories
ambitious.
converged. It will never see that. It just didn't. I wasn't mature enough to execute it, but in my mind, it was a great idea to do. But they all converged. So I was a filmmaker since I was 25. I guess is the short of it.
And how about you, Paula?
Well, again, starting in theater, since about mid 90s, about no, actually a little bit earlier than that. Before I went to Fordham University for drama, but before that, I was producing for friends and so since about the 90s, even though I was only 10 at the time, but since
Close.
about
I understand.
and then, but Kelvin and I have been working between about 15 years, 10 and 15 years. Mhm.
Okay. So when you first told everybody, I'm going to be a filmmaker, what were your families and friends' concepts? Get a degree first? No way. Not in this household. What was their response? Or was it great support?
Friends is very different because most of my friends were either folks that I met in film school and were working on my short films at the time. And I was in New York City. I was blessed to be in New York in the late 80s, early 90s, which was just a cauldron of stewing wannabe filmmakers. And it was great. It was a great time to work on people's films and to make films and to sit and to collaborate on stories and all of that. My family, they really knew that I was the artsy kid. I have there's 7 siblings. I have 6 siblings, and there's 7 of us. And I was the one that went the art route. But mostly, again, early on was more performance, choirs, and theater and things like that. So they didn't know much about it other than, okay, you're going to film school. Okay, you're not at NYU in film school. I would show them work. They would say it's nicely, it's well received. They actually support, but at the same time, my personal feeling with the support you get is really, you get your family loves you obviously, but you really get uh, validation as the artist you want to be or claim to be, by you get it by yourself or to yourself. And then you get it by making films and putting them out there, not necessarily to friends and family, but putting them out there to a larger audience that doesn't know anything about you, and then really seeing how it really plays. um, I can't tell you, Dennis, how many times I've shown my work to family or friends who are not in the business, and they're like, "Oh, it's great, it's great." And they start showing it at festivals, and it's like, early work, of course. I mean, we're making great content now, great work now. So that's my feeling. That's the thing I love about film festivals, and the thing I look forward to showing music for a while at the NYC Indie Fest is, and you guys are international, so we get to actually see how this plays to somebody who's living in Europe, someone who's living in South America, someone who's living on the continent of Africa. That is always a wonderful thing. And what's happened in the 5 festivals we've been in so far, people come up to us who don't know anything about us, and they say, we love, that touched us. We love that film. And that's the validation. That's the validation that to me is the truthful validation. Love my family, love my friends, and keep encouraging us, family and friends. But really what we really seek is to put good work out there and to know it's good because we know it in our hearts, but also our audiences are telling us that it's good.
Well, I think with that though, Kelvin, you and having known you this long, you also do find your tribe as you make the film. Whether you start having friends who are the line producers, more cinematographers and editors, and
Oh yeah,
when you
oh yeah,
find your tribe, that also helps. Because the ones who are your tribe, they're the ones who will tell you if your baby's ugly. All right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then they're also the ones who will tell you, oh my God, this is amazing. So I
Right.
think time, that's what, and also with time, and interesting, one of the nice things is I've also seen Kelvin develop, sing, and grow and be able to tell more of his truth. And the more that has happened, more of the tribe, shall we say, has developed. For me, um, I have a twin sister, as I think I mentioned earlier, and she's my heart. And but we have very similar tastes when it comes to art and also values and so forth. But she's also someone who'll tell me, perhaps that should go back in the oven a little longer. If I'm working on a project, that should bake. That's what we say in our family. Perhaps it's a little soggy in the middle, you know. But she's always been my cheerleader, my critic, my such and such. So that has been my main guiding force. And my family has always been very much supportive, and I've been very fortunate in that way. But um, it's always, but it's I've been very lucky. I've been very clear about purpose for quite a long time. For example, when as a youth, you go across the stage and you say, oh, this is what I want to be when I grow up. So, people say, I want to be a doctor. I want to be such and such. And I was like, I want to be left alone and do what I do. So that hasn't changed, except that I too have found my tribe that understands that sometimes I want to be left alone and sometimes I want to make a great film, a great theater project.
Okay. See, once again, you guys are way ahead of me because my next question is, do you have your tribe, your support group, your village? Have you found that?
Yeah, Carla makes a good point. The thing about filmmaking, and it's like this, and Carla can speak more about theater than I can, that, you put you put people together, you build a tribe, and then you make something, and then it's gone, and there's like this feeling at the end of it on the last day when you wrap where everyone's hugging each other and you're happy and all of that. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you got to do it again. But some of those people, you do forge those relationships with that.
Yeah.
So like you say, you definitely want to work with this person again. You definitely want to work with that person again. And even in the actors, it's like, oh, we have to work together again. And obviously you see that with, the hugely successful filmmakers out there, the partnerships, the Scorsese and the De Niro, and
Right.
on and on and on.
Right.
Early Spike Lee and Ernest Dickerson, for instance, and they met in film school, and Ernest did all of Spike's early cinematography on his film. So those things are well meaningful, and Carla is exactly right about that. That becomes your family and your tribe moving forward. So yes, that's very important to us. We have people in LA that we've worked with. We used to live in Austin, Texas. We have people in Austin, Texas. So those people are still important, and we call on them, even if it's something like, "Hey, I have a first cut of my film."
Right. We do
In
that all
fact,
the time.
with the editor for our feature film, Tim, who's a great award-winning. Now he's an award-winning filmmaker in his own right, mostly in documentary, but I always share work with him because I respect his, he's very honest about it. He's a dynamite editor. And we share cuts with him and get feedback, and many others, mostly people that we've worked with over the years.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to tribe, and actually, Kelvin and I at this point with our partnership are each other's tribe. Kelvin, we have our specialties. I have a lot of background in marketing and PR. So we work very well together coming up with different ideas and promotions, but I do a lot of lead for that. And, in generally speaking, I have the final word. And when it comes to directing, he has the final word, but he will take suggestions, or if I see something's not quite gelling or not quite working, or sometimes maybe it's the female voice, or something of that nature. So we definitely are each other's muse in some ways, as a partnership, and listening to each other. He has a great respect for my ability. I can get butts and seats. And the reason why I can do that is because I believe I believe in what's called a partnership. And whatever project I work on, for example, when I am the assistant dean at the School of Drama now. It's called the David Geffen School of Drama. And I'm also the general manager of the Yale Repertory Theater. But I'm also a filmmaker. But everything I do and every project that I ask someone to become a part of is because I believe in that project. I'm never asking anyone for a favor. I'm asking if they would like to join something that I think is immensely wonderful. Do we want to do this together? So that is how he and I are able to get people. We cast beautifully. We hire crew fantastically because we know that they're going to have a great experience with us. So it's not a favor, it's a journey and it's a joy.
That's great.
And Dennis, we pay people.
And we feed them. Yes, yes.
We don't pay them. We don't pay them
A lot,
what
but
they're
you pay
worth.
them.
But we
they
do
get
our
paid now.
best. Yes.
Not get it twisted. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's great. You're exactly right, Carla. That's
Right. So what made you decide to make this film, this movie?
yeah. Yeah. It's I love music. I mean, love music. I talked about film and how film spoke to me early on, but it's always been music, all kinds of music. Weirdly enough, even as a kid, liking things like Porgy and Bess and being in elementary school and, and responding to
The
opera,
whiz.
things like that. I actually have, I probably got it from my mother. My mother had a piano that she would tinkle on around in the house. And she was really big into gospel music, but also jazz. And then, my parents were children of the 60s and in the 70s, and they'd have like their friends over and family over. We'd have cookouts. The funk would be playing, the Isley Brothers, Stevie Wonder, all of that stuff from the 70s. It's the soundtrack of the 70s and then the 80s and all of that. But I just love music, and I always wanted to do a musical of some sort. I just wanted to. I'm a huge Bob Fosse fan, for instance, Cabaret and Sweet Charity, and I always wanted the challenge of being able to see what that was like, and I had the opportunity to do a film, and I said, well, this is the opportunity to do it. At the time, I was really listening to a lot of Baroque music, strangely enough. Henry Purcell, which Music for a While is sung by the Baroque composer Henry Purcell. But there was an updated version that was actually being featured on Spotify, and I started playing that. And I was like, this would be a really great song to visualize in some way. So at the time, living in the New York City area, it was a year and change ago, 18 months ago, the struggles that were happening on the subways with people who are unhoused or people who have mental challenges. That was sort of inside of me. And I wanted to do something around that, around homelessness, peripherally around homelessness, and around a person who is on the street. And then also, not to complicate this, I also wanted the challenge of a non-dialogue movie to tell a story without the benefit of dialogue, expositionary dialogue, or just clever dialogue and all that, but to tell it all through visuals, almost like a silent film, but it's music and images and dance. So all of that said is I just sat down one weekend and just knocked it. It all just kind of came through me because I think it was percolating inside of me for a long time. So when I sat down and worked on it, you know, it was a draft, a rough draft, but then through iterations, we kind of got it there. But it was pretty much the story. The only difference being, Dennis, and this is not to tell too much of the story, because we want everyone who's watching this to come to the screening, and you'll be able to see it. But it was originally on an actual subway, but it's too expensive in New York City to lock down the subway. So we had to then cleverly change it to the streets, which actually had its own challenge. I love the fact that, wow, we're shooting on the streets of New York City, busy New York City. Never did that before. So that was a lot of fun. But we had to pivot and make that work. So it was mostly the challenges and mostly my love of music, and also the challenges around the what ifs. What if I can't hear? What if I lose my hearing? And this love of music is no longer available to me, a la a Beethoven or someone like that. And another thing that's really interesting is we've been in 2 festivals so far that people have come up to afterwards and said, this film really touched me because I also have hearing loss. And that surprises me that that's something that, it shouldn't surprise me, but that's something that is actually out there as well. So it all just kind of came together like that. And yeah, and it's one of those instances where it works, in that you know, it doesn't try to do too much, but at the same time it has a lot. There's a lot in there, a lot of layers in there that people can get out of music for a while.
Well,
I can see why you like him, Carla. Anyway, go ahead.
well, the other thing too is that, which is very much our style, is that the unexpected. We People have a tendency to see people and make a snap judgment. You see someone walking down the street, you see someone speaking, or a child, an adult, whatever, and you say, oh, and you put them in a category. And sometimes it's a positive one, but not always. And one of the things that we wanted this film to do is also kind of turn that on its head. So that means every character pretty much that you meet in this film is not exactly who you think they are. And I think what I love about it is that when people leave the film, they leave seeing something that they didn't expect, and also thinking, hey, next time I'm out and interacting in the world, let me be open to who I'm meeting. Let me make sure that I'm not making a snap judgment. And I think that's a wonderful way of being.
My next questions I'm going to put together. I had them separate originally, but everybody seems to like them together. What was the hardest part, and what was the most fun of making this movie?
I'll go with the most fun first. It was casting it and crewing it up. You know, we got very lucky, but at the same time, we spent a lot of time making sure we, through auditions, mostly virtual, but we made sure that we had right people. We saw some great people in the various roles, and you know, but you know, it's always a decision, and there's a gut feeling. But part of even that decision is, oh, we should go with this person, because that's not necessarily what I was seeing in my case in point. One of the singers was a male. It wasn't it was a male singer, but once we got presented with options, then it was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And I would tweak the script accordingly. So that was really interesting. You know, what comes to you, you know, the script, the cliche, a script is a blueprint, but you have a script, but then what comes to you actually to open your mind up a little more and say, oh, that's actually interesting, and I can see how we could tweak it a little bit. That actually is a positive way to update the story a bit. So that was fun. The challenges, I mean, we shot over 4 days. The biggest challenge was the sound. It was so loud in the exteriors. We shot obviously without sound, but at the same time, we had pre-recorded the song, but we had the challenge of being in a very busy area of 125th and Broadway in the middle of the day, and all day, and you know, morning rush hour, evening rush hour, and the playback was really challenging. It was hard sometimes for the dancers to hear the playback. It was hard for the singers to hear then they had to lip sync. So that was one of the things. We got past it, and you don't notice it, but it was one of the challenges. What about you, Carla? What do you think?
Well, also one of the, I think, positive things is, and in fact, one of the people who saw the film, it truly is an homage to New York. 125th Street is iconic, and when you see it, even if you are a New Yorker or if you're not, when you see that place, there is a feeling of being very, very spatially located. This is somewhere that is known, across the country and internationally and so forth. So I love that. And I love, New York can be very difficult, and where we were wasn't necessarily the most cleanest necessarily, but it was also at the same time, though, the most beautiful because of the history and also because of how the film played out. So that's one of the things that I love about it. If you have any kind of a love for New York, you're going to love looking at this film. The difficulty part was, again, the crew and the cast, because you've got to get that right. You've got to get that right. And that was wonderful to be able to do it. I will push back on the term luck. I do not believe in luck. I believe in preparedness. And I believe in making sure that you know what you want. And that's the thing that both of us are very good at knowing. Because when you know what you want, it isn't about saying, this is what I have to have. It's about what I want. What I want is someone who can represent the character the way we need it to be. So we may have an idea of what that is, but when that person presents themselves in front of us, we will know. And that's not about luck. That's about having the training. That's about having the ability to be open-minded. That's about being nimble. So luck may play a part, but being able to be a creative who's spent enough time in the business makes you able to see when the opportunity is in front of you.
I have a question. Do you shoot with or without permits?
We shot.
You actually don't, but it's easier if you have them. Like I always shoot with.
Not outdoors. Not outdoors.
Right.
In fact, the police asked to be in the film.
Did they? Well, I knew that they wouldn't complain. I'm just simply saying if you actually went
Now, indoors we had permits.
Okay.
Yeah, no, our line producer who she's very much in the indie scene, and she was very accurate, because I was concerned about it. I was like, well, are they going to shut us down on the street? And she was like, nobody's
nobody's going to shut you down. It's just that I was just curious because you said you paid people. I don't know if you actually went so far as to then get permits so you can close the streets, or you just.
We didn't close the street.
Oh no, yeah.
I was the one.
You're fine.
Yeah. We actually didn't want. I mean, the thing is so what I did, Dennis, is once I realized we weren't going to be able to shoot on the subway, I actually went up there and did this like 2-hour location scout where I ended up seeing what the stage was, and I was talking, in a memo saying, okay, we can have the dancers here, we can have this hair with the saxophone player, blah blah blah. We can do all of this, and just seeing how that would work. And then I did a mock-up for my DP, and we just kind of talked through it. And then he and I scouted it again and sort of talked through it. And we had a plan of action going there, but we agreed that the texture of the city, to Carla's point, was going to be really important. The traffic just doing what it's doing without us blocking it. Now, again, it was a challenge. It was, like I said, the sound was a challenge, but also sometimes it was just a lot of traffic and we had to wait and do this and that. But it was just part of that's why we had 2 days to do it, because we knew that would be important. And it gave us a lot in the editing room to work with. So, we like the naturalness of it,
right. And also what I would do is just I would also make the round. You're a producer, right? So yeah, I got people fed, I paid them, but I also made sure I did the rounds to make sure that there was no one who would possibly, be on set in some way. But really what New York City cares about is that you don't impede traffic, whether it's foot traffic or regular, and we did not do that.
Right.
So that was the main point. Everyone who came through there that had something to do with the city was just curious or wanted to be a part of it. But as Kelvin said, what was beautiful is that we were able to use the true heartbeat, right, of the city. We're through the foot traffic and through the regular subways, through the buses and so forth coming through. So that was so authentic and so perfect for what the scene called for.
Okay, cool. Cool. All right, so my next question is, are you happy? So are you the type of, like, not necessarily about this project, this is more generic. Are you the type of filmmaker that you finish your film and you say, okay, that child's off, he's over there. You know, I'm gonna, whatever mistakes I made, I'm just gonna learn for the next project. Or do you stare at that film for all eternity going, oh, I should have done this differently. If I ever get the money, I'm gonna redo that. Or what type of filmmaker are you?
All the eternity.
Yeah, this is probably the the first time that I feel like I made the film that I wanted to make. And I'm very happy about it. Usually, like you said, Dennis, is I'm hypercritical of what I've done, and at some point, I'm like, I wish I had more time. I wish I could have done this. I wish that I beat myself up with that. But this one, it's pretty much I watch it. I don't step out of when it's screening. I'm like, oh, okay, I've seen this film a million times. Let me go, in the lobby and have a soda or whatever. I actually sit there and I enjoy it still.
Mhm.
So I think we made the film that we wanted to make and
Mhm.
are very proud of it. So I'm quite pleased with how it turned out, to the point that I'm actually trying to figure out, okay, the process that we just went through last year, how do we replicate that? How do we do that again? Because that's the trick, right? It's like, okay, there was a lot of learning out of this. Some of it was, the challenges and things like that. But the things that we did well, how do we do that again? Especially if we wanted to evolve to making a feature film, right? How do you actually have that same energy, that same thought behind it, through casting, through crewing it up, through writing it, and all of that, so that it feels the same way. So I don't know. That's the mystery of all of this thing we do. So
This
if we
was
can capture it
actually
in a bottle, that would be great.
right.
So,
This was actually the first film that Kelvin and I did together in New York City. So that was actually really a lot of fun because the talent right here is incredible. So that was a lot of fun. And also, I will say, I think every film I have seen Kelvin let loose a little bit more. Just say, okay, got it, and let go a little bit more. This one is definitely been the one where I feel as if he's had the most enjoyment. But overall, I think every film there's been a little bit less, oh, I should have done this. But in general, there's no everlasting, wake up at 2 a.m. 5 years later. Ah, I know exactly what should have happened. No, you know.
I don't
Um,
know. Sometimes I wish I could reshoot something that I've done in the past.
but
It's like,
moving on. That's who you were then. That's who
was
you
that?
were then. If you reshot it now, that wouldn't be who you were. So that's exactly what it was supposed to be at that time.
Exactly. I mean, I know that. It's just that, it's as you grow as a filmmaker, and Dennis, you're a filmmaker, you know this just like we know it. You you know more about how the world works, and you know also how to be more honest with yourself,
Right.
and to put that into your work. When you're younger, you're either trying to follow the trends out there, at least maybe I'm just speaking for myself, follow the trends out there, try to be funny, or be, like I said, with the film that I tried to do, I just wasn't ready for it. I wasn't mature enough for it. So, that's what I mean, Carla, when I say, oh, now that I know what I know now, it would be great if I went back and did that film, because I think I could actually really pull it off at that point. But
Well, then
yes.
you do the film now, you know. But I think though, I think I'm very much a person who is who she is now. You learn from it, and here it is. Because I think, in fact, I think you would miss something. There's a great deal of knowledge that you have now. But if you did that film now, that that person that you were wouldn't be in that film. So something would be missing. So whatever the film is,
it would definitely be a different film. Yeah, that's
right.
for sure.
So whatever the film is, whenever you make it, that's where it's supposed to be in that moment.
And there's so many stories to tell. So I don't have to go
Oh,
back.
yeah.
So many
Ask us, Dennis. Ask us what's next.
Okay, what's next?
Oh, who knows? I mean, there's always like ideas. I'm working on a couple of scripts. One of them a musical. I would love to figure out a way to do a feature, low budget feature that's a musical. It has to be the right story, though. That's the trick. One of the things that at my age that I am embracing and being really comfortable with is the idea that I don't have to do something simply to say that I did it. I'm only trying to do good work. And if I'm not happy with the script, even if it's a short script, if I don't get to the place of saying this really works and I share with Carla and other folks that I trust their feedback, if it doesn't feel right, then in the past, that hasn't been the case. It's like, oh, we have the opportunity. We have this window to do it. Let's do it. I'm not doing that
Right.
anymore.
No.
So the trick now is to actually get to the place that we have a script that we're both proud of, that we can say, this is the one, let's go with it. And that's what we're working through now.
But some of the scripts has to do with people on death row. That's the term I was looking for. So sometimes with people on death row, one of the scripts has to deal with some metaphysical, slightly supernatural. Another film has something to do with sisters and family. Another one we're thinking about is biblical. So there's many different things that we're looking at. Some involve music, some might be documentaries. So there's a lot of wonderful stuff.
And what's funny about the death row, and since you bring it up, is I wrote that script like 10 years ago and it's still not right. I just can't figure it out. But it's a great idea. I just can't figure it out. And either something's going to click with it, and then it's like, that was the key. You know what, Carla? Maybe that becomes a musical, a death row musical.
There you go. Singing and dancing. Death.
I don't think so, but anyway, the whole point is patience and just it'll come to you or it won't. And there's other stories to be told out there, so it's all good either way.
All right,
and there's other filmmakers to work with. That's the thing. We love working with other folks. We've been hired to do other projects. It doesn't have to be our story. It doesn't have to be our story. It just has to be a story we believe in.
Right. One last question, and this is very important. We all know that in the indie film world, we're not going to be buying private jets and mansions. So what would you consider success? What does that look like in the indie film world to you?
I'm feeling this festival run, Dennis. I'm feeling the idea of just being at these festivals where it's not only filmmakers, but people who love independent film and just meeting and networking and just breaking bread and drinking wine and water with them. So I'm loving that. I think that's the future. I think that is the niche that people who love film find each other and keep doing what you're doing with NYC Indie Fest. Let's keep these film festivals going so that we're not making films that automatically are just going to be shown on someone's phone or someone's laptop, but that there is an avenue. I mean, this film looks gorgeous on the screen. And I mean, that's a shout out to our cinematographer, Niger Miles. It's just beautiful. And it's a different experience. That's why people say, oh, could you just share the Vimeo link with me? I'm like, oh, yeah, let's go see it. I'll let you know when there's a festival. I don't think, to your point, it's not like we don't have to be like, jet setting and doing this big, whatever, getting Oscar nominations. That would be great, but whatever. We just want to have people who love film. we just want to have people who love film, loving our film and being at our film.
And us seeing their film.
And I got to tell you, Dennis, I've seen so many amazing short films in particular, but some features as well, while we've had the five film festivals that we've been in, I'm just amazed at the level of artistry that filmmakers are putting out there now, and that's really promising. And I just hope that stays up. I know people are saying AI, and at some point, the robots will make films, and the actors.
Get rid of us.
But the robots.
I'm an old
You have
guy,
what?
so I said I'm an old guy. I'm not going to worry about all that. But
Yeah, right. I don't know. We'll see if that
yeah.
even plays out. There's some value in using the tools that are available to us. But the truth of the matter is, the human spirit lives on. Not to sound too woo-woo-ish, and as long as you're telling your story, your truth, whatever that is, it could be a dark truth, it could be a humorous truth, it could be a intellectual truth, and as long as you're doing that and you're doing it in a way that's sustainable in our way, because we're not making a living at filmmaking. We're both blessed that we actually have careers that outside of that actually feed into it. I work in storytelling and content creation. Carla works with students and in the university setting and creativity. So we're blessed with that. But at the same time, we also can continue to do a film like Music for a While, and maybe every other year do a short film, if you will. So that's success for us, and we're very happy with it.
You will see some AI generated movies. We actually have some people.
That's great. Is it a block in particular?
No, it's just I didn't even realize it, but I was doing one of these with somebody, and she goes, "Yeah, it was the first time I ever played with AI. It's so cool. I made this whole movie using AI." I was like, "Oh, okay, I didn't realize that."
Well, I look forward to seeing that film. I would love to see how that film turned out.
But when I think about success, it's interesting because, as I said, I'm a dean. I also teach a class, and I work with students. So success, is one of the things when I work with students. They go on to become managing directors of theaters and so forth. So, but in general, my idea about success is about knowing you've done a job. You've done a job well, and that you are living in a way that brings joy to yourself and that brings joy to others. If you sell something, fantastic, that's great. If you don't, if it's something that is your truth, wonderful. That's what success is. And I think that's the thing that, if you follow that, that's the thing that gets you to the place where perhaps you can have a consistent living. I think it's when you try to do, this will be a viral, this will be commercially successful. I think that's where the mistakes get. But when you try to tell your truth, when you try to engage in truth, when you try to even help other people find their truth, and you do it in an empathetic, loving way, and with professionalism, of course, and with expertise, that's when the consistency comes, and that's where the success comes. And that's where you can sleep well, laugh well, and live well.
Okay, great. The film is called Music for a While. It's going to show Thursday at 4 o'clock at the New York City Independent Film Festival. It's a block of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 films, 10 short movies. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you for doing this.